Welcome back to the Food Dispensary Marketing GDM Podcast. Always trying to talk with the best entrepreneurs, people crushing in the cannabis space. And today I'm really excited to introduce Bianca Snyder. She is the founder of High Society Mama, and she's also the founder of Society's Plant, which is a community of 130,000 strong of canna moms. And she's on a mission to help mothers beat burnout through plant medicine and authentic living. And she's been featured in some big publications like the LA Times, New York Post, Business Insider, Cosmopolitan, and various other media outlets. And so really excited to talk with you today, Bianca, specifically about High Society Mama, what you got going on over there in Society's Plant. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm excited to be on and be discussing all things motherhood, plant medicine, how we're building community and reaching audiences.
Yeah, no, likewise. I saw you on, I was telling you this privately, but I saw you on LinkedIn posting some really cool stuff on psychedelics and microdosing. You really piqued my interest. Like, wow, I want to talk to her. Let's have her on the podcast. And that's a topic we'll get to a second here. But I really wanted to kind of start this off by focusing a little bit more on you and your background. Can you start this off at the beginning? So I was reading up on you, I was doing some internet stalking. It looks like you actually were initially in the wine and spirits industry. And so I'm curious, what was that like? And why come into cannabis?
Yeah. Well, my whole career has been in regulated products. I got started with Red Bull before anyone was really drinking Red Bull. And then when I turned 21, I went into wine and spirits. And I was always a rebel and a disruptor of just trying to live life to the fullest. So why not do that in what I am passionate in? And when I was younger, I was passionate about going out and having fun and being in nightlife. And as I got older and started exploring different plant medicines and psychedelics and how those really affect us as humans, I started to reevaluate where my allegiance and passion lied. And it became harder and harder to continue to advocate for people to drink more alcohol. And that's what I was doing every day. I ran 12 states plus all of Canada, opening new markets, going in, finding new sales strategies to increase sales volume. And meanwhile, it was, hurting my soul as a longtime Burning Man attendee or participant. We started being more immersed and exploring different realms of consciousness and different ways of living our life. And it just no longer fit with the lifestyle I wanted to be part of. So my husband had shifted into growing, and then we continued down that path. I started learning more and exploring the marketing side of cannabis. So that was the next on the sort of horizon of what was possible. And so I started High Society Mama, my social media page, when I was trying to just learn the positioning of women in cannabis. Like what were brands putting out there? And I was like, if I'm going to bother to have an Instagram page, it should be a representation of me. And I had a 3-year-old at the time when I started my page in 2018. And so I was balls deep in motherhood, and I was struggling with it. I was thinking through how I was using the plant to enhance the joys of motherhood. And so I started posting about that. And it was at a time where there weren't a lot of people posting about that, much less in a very relatable and not about just getting, I always use the term high as fuck. Like that is not the purpose that I was, am going for. It's how can we use this to enhance our experience? And so that it caught on because there was a market for people who were wanting to relate in that way. They maybe were starting to explore it. They were feeling alone and feeling very isolated in that motherhood experience. And that's where building on that community, I've since created the High Society of Mamas, which is really our community page that other people can collaborate on. And then in 2020, we changed over our farm to start growing hemp. And that's when I created Society's Plant, because we know this plant is here to bring us together. It's here to heal us. It's here to help assist society. But what I'm seeing in the industry is it also gets abused a lot and overused and misused in its intention. And so when I created Society's Plant, it was really bringing together what I see as the essence of the plant, the medicine, the community, but having approachable products that we, source and grow, and bringing that to market in an approachable way. So societiesplant.com is our e-commerce shop, and we have the whole kitchen sink. We have flour, we have gummies, we have 9 different gummies of different cannabinoids. We have vapes, we have tinctures, including functional mushrooms, and we have teas made from the stems of our hemp plants that we grow. So we try to use as much of the plant as possible without waste. That's important to us. We're big on sustainability and having less of an impact with our packaging. We don't use any plastics in our packages. And so, that's an integral part of what I bring to market with my brand. But then on the High Society Mama side, it's really just like that advocacy and inspiring mothers to feel like they are being heard and seen, and also guiding them through the process of learning about plant medicine.
Yeah, no, really great answer. Actually, you're starting to cut into my questions. And, I had other questions, and you're answering them before I could even ask them. But let's break this down on one by one. And so let's start with Society's Plant. I'm kind of curious if you could go into a little bit more detail about how you came to found it, what kind of products you offer. I know you were talking about that a second ago a little bit, but a little bit more in depth. I'm just curious. It looks like you have hemp products, and so I'm curious if these are Farm Bill compliant products or what's going on. And then why the name Society's Plant?
Yeah, so all of our products are Farm Bill compliant. That was a big step that we took in when the Farm Bill passed. We were growing the very first season that it was allowed in Michigan, where our farm is based. And so I needed a brand that represented what we're all about. And that really sort of encompassed that. We have the sort of Illuminati vibes, but that Illuminati concept is the enlightened thinker. And so, it might have negative connotations to some, but ultimately, I was literally just reading it to my son, who's now 9, and he was asking about our symbol, and so we were reading this National Geographic magazine last night, and I was going over Illuminati, and the basis of the Illuminati was free thinkers. They were the age of enlightenment. And so I just thought it was a good reminder, and it's interesting having that conversation with my son, which, speaking of, that is an integral part of what I advocate for, is having those open conversations with our kids, because they're the next generation. And that's what we're trying to do to normalize plant medicine, is raise a next generation that this is normal. This is part of our community.
Yeah, I love it, because it's not just a brand, it's a movement, as opposed to, just selling products. You're also selling a lifestyle. So I wanted to shout you out on that. That's actually really cool. Well, what kind of products are you working on right now that you're most excited about? Is there anything that you could tell us about that you got coming in the pipeline that you're really excited about?
Yeah. So I will say the number one cannabinoid that I am a avid fan of is CBDA.
Why is that? I'm not familiar with CBD. Go for it.
A lot of people are not. So CBDA is the acetate version of CBD. It's the one before it converts into it's like the acidic version before it converts into its final form, CBD. But what causes that conversion is the heating of the plant. So I refer to it as the raw form of CBD. And that raw form, just like when we talk about our food as our medicine, when we eat raw celery, we're getting all these nutrients that our body can just like absorb and loves. But when we heat it, we lose so much of those nutrients. It just dissolves into the water, into the cooking process. It converts. It's not as strong. It's not as potent. And so the same thing happens with CBDA versus when it converts to CBD. It's just not as rich in bioavailability. So from what we know about CBDA, it's 10 times more bioavailable than regular CBD. So you can use a much smaller amount and it's that much more potent. It covers the COX-2 pain receptor. And
what is that?
So when your body's in pain and you're like, oh, I'm going to take some Advil to cut the pain, that Advil goes into your body and it covers your COX-2 pain receptor, so you can't feel that pain anymore. So, but what's different about CBDA versus Advil is CBDA is actually working inside your body to reduce inflammation and help heal it. And so it's when a lot of people take THC for pain, it's more of a mental game of regulating your pain than it is actually reducing your pain. So CBDA is an amazing painkiller. It's like, I call it nature's Tylenol. It also is incredible for anxiety. So I take it every night, and I wake up better rested and also just with less anxiety. It's the only thing that works for me, and it's natural. So why would I not continue taking it? But I do notice a significant difference when I don't take it. It has been shown to shrink breast cancer tumors.
Really?
And so it has all of these benefits that, I mean, the amount that I believe in it for everyone to be taking it as a daily supplement, even if you're not wanting to get high, is so exponential. I recommend it to all of my family members, whatever ailment they have. I'm like, are you taking your soft CBDA soft gels? Like, they're like, oh, I didn't know you could take them for this. I'm like, I've had people that have like gone into the emergency room for dental pain and nothing, they're like not able to solve the problem. They start taking these and they're like, oh my God, my pain went away. I was able to like get this fixed. It like got me through. It removed infections. It's been shown to prevent, a study had come out during COVID that it actually like helped block the spread of COVID. And so, yeah, it's just been.
No, thank you for educating me on that, because I'd never heard about this. And so I'm assuming this is a product that we're selling over at Society's plant, right?
It is. So the main thing is that it's just a more expensive extraction. So it has to go, it can't be heated. And so in general, people are not spending the money to keep the CBDA intact. We've even had issues with like our going to like a manufacturer. If they have any heat in the process, then our product's been just like, it's gotten destroyed before.
Yeah.
And it is a challenging process. And I think that's why more people are not doing it. It's also just kind of slipped through the cracks because it doesn't land in a lot of products, because people that are making products are not taking the plant from the ground and following through on the whole process.
That's interesting that you can't heat it up and it kills it. Maybe that's a reason why we haven't fully discovered this yet. 'Cause, I make my own cannabis oils, and heat is a huge part of the process. So it probably kills all that CBDA in the process. But I'm curious, what other cannabinoids are you most passionate about? So we got our number one down. What do you think about like Delta 8, THC 8, or I'm curious to hear your thoughts on on these topics.
Yeah, we have a one gummy that is straight THCV, and THCV is it's generally not psychoactive. If you take enough, you will feel like a very lightness, but definitely not a high. I take it every day as my like general focus, get shit done gummy. And when I was naming this gummy, it's good for energy, it's an appetite suppressant, and it's anti-anxiety. So when I was thinking about what name encompasses all those, I decided to name it the fucking miracle because there's
it's
no
good
other
marketing,
gummy.
good branding.
No other gummy that does all those things. And so speaking of like sort of our fun takes on marketing, we have a CBD full spectrum gummy. It's passion fruit flavored, and I had to come up with a name for that gummy. Within the motherhood community and being an advocate for moms using cannabis, one of the things I've talked about a lot is how when we go to have sex, have an orgasm, moms have this mental to-do list that is just looming in our heads at all times.
Yeah.
Whether we're thinking about, is it trash day tomorrow? What do I have? Did I buy that snack for school? Valentine's Day party? Did I change the laundry over? What activities do I have tomorrow after school that I need to pack for before we leave the house in the morning? All of these things that are just mental clutter. And so when you go to, you're like, okay, finally got the kids to bed. Let's get down and dirty in the sheets. And this is running through your head. It's
Ruins
really
everything.
hard to reach an orgasm when you're doing your mental checklist. So I had already started recommending people to use CBD because it just has that anti-anxiety effect. It just gets your brain to slow down. So when I was creating our gummy, which is 50 milligrams full spectrum CBD, we don't add any THC to it, but when you get full spectrum, you're going to have some naturally occurring THC. And so there's about 1.5 milligrams of THC not added just because that's what's in the full spectrum CBD. And so I call that, that's like the ultra microdose, but it's naturally occurring. Well, I needed to market it. It's passion fruit flavored. So that's our passion fruit sex gummy. It doesn't actually have anything special for sex in it. It's just a different way of thinking about how we're using this plant.
Yeah, no,
and
that's really creative.
It was an area that I was like, okay, this is a story to tell. Whether you're trying to have an orgasm or you're just trying to fall asleep at night or you're just stressed out at the end of the day, you can use the passion gummy to calm your mind. But, I bet your husband will like it a lot more if you go have fun in the sheets instead of just stressing out, doom scrolling.
That's actually pretty funny. A little off topic, but I used to be in charge of like this big old Parasite SEO vertical for making like millions for other people before I jumped off and did my own. And one of the big keywords that we used to dominate for was CBD gummies for sex. And so if you went on Google at the time, this would have been like 2 years ago, you would have found our articles. And so, maybe in the future you could reach out to those publications and say, hey, yeah, let's put my sex gummy on there just to help you with some revenue. Something to think about. But
I would definitely take that. We do very well with that method of SEO.
Hell yeah.
Like that was not even an intentional. I mean, it was somewhat intentional because I knew it was an angle that wasn't getting marketed to enough, but the amount that it easily disrupted SEO was like, I was like, I just landed all like 4 of these phrases number 1 from one block.
Yeah.
So,
That's a topic we could go into in another day, but we just did an SEO panel. We don't need to talk about SEO, but it's a great strategy. But let's go back to you. So that's really interesting. Society's plan. Love the branding, love the products. I think it's really cool. We'll definitely leave all the information. We could circle back on this if you'd like. But I'm really curious to go back over to High Society Mama. And so you're known as the High Society Mama. And so I'm kind of curious, where did this name come from? And how did you grow to over 130,000 moms? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I think it really came down to a solid understanding my niche, target market, all those cliche methods, but I was very intentional. I have a background in marketing. I have an MBA in marketing. I understand the market because I am the market. And I strongly felt that there was a influx of trying to advocate for moms to use cannabis, but the method to do that was just people being like, look at my smoke clouds. I'm normalizing it. And I was thinking to myself, is this really normalizing it? Or is this like extending the stigma to mothers because people don't want to be associated with that? And I think that's where we have a big disconnect in the marketing for moms is what is that path to normalization? And I've gone through many iterations in my learning of how I am presenting the plant and how I am helping people to feel normal about it. And I continuously go back to that. It's about expressing the feeling the feeling of the experience. It's not about showing the experience. And so there's like the experience of consumption, and that's not the part that we need to normalize. We need to normalize moms consuming because of the way it makes us feel, because of the way it makes us be more present, because of the way it connects us with our kids, makes us more patient, more understanding. But it's not the act of showing us hitting bongs and smoking joints, because to the outside consumer or the outside person, they see that and they're like, is that what you're doing in front of your kids? That's bad. And that's what I want to make the distinction, that that's not what we're doing. We are taking safety precautions. We're not smoking in front of our kids. But when you're showing smoking on social media and showing bong rips, that's where people's heads go. And that's where there's fear, and we're like proliferating the fear instead of destigmatizing it.
Yeah, and I love you. You have a slogan that I found. It's just say no to mom burnout. And so, that in itself kind of fights the stigma and kind of pretty much presents what you're doing with this community. Yeah. And I wanted to underline the fact that you said that I am the audience. And so, yeah, of course you could build an audience of 120,000 if you yourself are part of the audience. And so, I think that's really cool.
I really do love the just say no to mom burnout. When I came up with that, I was like, this makes so much sense, because it's the play on words that we all have had so ingrained on, just say no to drugs. Well, what we're really doing is we're taking a stand for how we're handling our maternal mental health. And so just say no to mom burnout is like the clap back to that without doing the, I hear this so often, and it kind of makes me cringe, but I get it, is the mom smoking weed should be just as normal as mom's drinking wine. Mommy needs a glass of wine should be just as normal as mommy needs a joint. And yes, but that's not a stand. That's not encompassing the movement. The movement is why are we using it? And we're using it to feel better. And so mommy needs isn't the same principle as let's take a stand that this is what we're doing. We are preventing burnout.
Yeah, well, let's actually dive into that a little bit more. Growing up, I had a mom, I have a mom, excuse me. It's not past tense. But she always had her 1 or 2 beers every day after work. It was very clear that she's using that to kind of unwind, relax herself, and just be present and enjoying the moment. But I'm curious, in your experience and what you've seen running the community that you run, one, do you see a movement of canna moms coming about? What's the state of that movement? And how do you think alcohol and THC, CBD, these sorts of things compare to the wine, the glass of wine, or the 1 beer a day drinkers? What do you think?
So I think we have normalized wine as a decompression tool. And the reason we've done that is because it's a place of making a shift. It's a very distinguishable feeling from I'm stressed, I have a lot going on, and I need something that's going to hit and get me to relax and just enjoy the next phase of what I have to do, which is probably make dinner, get the kids to bed, probably do some laundry, definitely do some tidying, all of those things. And once you're home for the day, now is the time that, okay, I get to unwind. And so I get that there is a need for that. There's a need for a shift. There's a need for having something that makes you feel a different way. And there's a lot of fear around, I know what happens when I drink 1 glass of wine. I know what happens when I drink 2 glasses of wine. I don't know what happens when I take a gummy, but I know this one time that I took a gummy and I got way too high, and I'm not doing that again. Remember that time in college that gave me a brownie and I was stuck on the couch thinking my life was ending for 8 hours? I don't want to do that ever again. So I'm going to stick to my glass of wine.
Yeah, I remember, it's getting us a little off topic again, but after Colorado legalized weed, all the gummies came about. Some of those should have been illegal. So, you eat that, oh, don't worry. And then all of a sudden you're just couch locked and you don't even know what's going on. You don't even know how you got there. And it's I don't know, it's ridiculous. And I love that people like yourself are kind of making the dosing a little bit more responsible and comfortable. That way you can still be a mom and still get your laundry done and still do all that stuff.
So the piece that we're missing in the industry is we are so stuck in the dispensary model of selling lots of THC. And then we have the hemp model that is, we just sell CBD, nothing works. I don't feel the difference. Now, in just like the past couple of years, it's exploded we have this hemp market that's really pushing the envelope on the Farm Bill. We have now hemp beverages coming out that are available in bars, and people have more and more access. They can walk into a liquor store now and pick up a hemp beverage. But we still have an issue of, if you have one bad experience, you're not going back. You're not picking up that drink again. You're not. So that's the part that I want to make sure that we don't mess up and that I want to overcome. And it really happens with some amount of education and understanding of how the cannabinoids can be used together to get the experience that you want. And some brands are doing a great job at marketing the products by effect. But in general, we're still seeing a lot of just how high can the THC go, and that the average consumer that picks up a drink in a bar or a liquor store doesn't have the full amount of education. I am seeing more drinks come out that are mixing the cannabinoids, but we know when you add CBG or CBD, it's going to take the edge off the THC. It's going to help lower your anxiety that you might get from getting high. But we still need to walk people up the ladder of their comfort level. And I just hope that we can get away from how high can you get marketing to how can we find the effects that are going to help you, because that's what this plant is for. That's why, I call it society's plant. It's here to help us heal. It's to enhance our lives. And if we're only going after that high THC experience, we're missing a lot of people accessing what the gift of this plant is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think moving on a little bit here, I think one of the big stigmas of cannabis for specifically moms, they kind of look at it as like this, and not necessarily just cannabis, but also plant medicine. That's another thing we'll get into. They kind of are a little afraid to start out. Maybe the people judge them, or maybe they'll go down the wrong path, and all of a sudden they're just a terrible mom and whatever. So what's the kind of rhetoric to anybody listening who might be on the fence about what they think about you? What would you say to them to kind of convince them to jump off the deep end, shall we say, and try out cannabis, microdosing, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So I out of my products, a great place to start is with like the CBA soft gels. Like if we can make a shift on your anxiety levels or your pain or your stress and just lower the bar a little bit, now it feels a little bit easier to try something else. The next step up would be like our Good Day gummy, which is just CBG and full spectrum CBD with about 1 milligram of THC. That's a great daytime. Like if you feel comfortable, you should feel comfortable using that during the day, driving your kids. Like that is not a dose that anyone needs to be concerned about getting in the car and driving their kids. And I think that's where the motherhood stigma and fear lies, is feeling out of control. And it's what gets people to try cannabis is how safe they feel. When a mom feels safe, and maybe that safety is a friend holding your hand in the process, a friend guiding you, or a community that is, led by me, led by other moms, where you feel safe asking questions. And so one of the big things that I emphasize is our comfort level is aligned with our feelings of safety. Is it safe for me to be around my kids? Is it safe for me to be watching over my kids and not be so blasted that I can't take them to the emergency room if something happens? And I know that safety is not so much of a concern when people are drinking wine, but it's because they have the sense of safety because they know it's predictable.
Yeah.
That's where they're finding, even though that they couldn't drive to the emergency room, they know what to expect, and that makes them feel safe.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Never thought of it that way. I would imagine you've said that probably 100,000 times or whatever to your audience when you're talking about the stigma. So thanks for being a broken record. Moving on, another topic that I really wanted to talk about that I'm actually excited to talk about was microdosing. And so I actually saw you on LinkedIn just out of circumstance talking about microdosing. And then after doing a little bit of research, I noticed that you also actually sell some microdose, mushroom. I'm assuming that these are psilocybin, or at least not yet. But I'm wondering if you could break those down, specifically what products you have and what you kind of recommend microdosing, and specifically what kind of products outside of the ones we've already been talking about.
So, I've not launched a product in that realm yet. It's been an area that I am definitely pursuing because I do see a need. And I think that the microdosing of psilocybin absolutely has a place in motherhood. And so it's about right now navigating the legal landscape as well as providing safe access. And both of those areas are a little bit gray right now. But what I am seeing is the acceptance and the rapid uptake of it has been exponentially faster than it has been for cannabis. So the possibilities are absolutely there. And so I can't recommend an exact dosage or product at this point in time, but I can say that I am excited to continue along in being a voice and an advocate. And when we were talking about when I was creating my brand, High Society Mama, as me and what I encompass, I was intentionally trying not to pigeonhole myself to only being cannabis. And I might only have a cannabis brand right now, but what I'm speaking about is the elevated state of motherhood.
Yeah. No,
how can we improve that experience? How can we feel our best? How can we live our best life? How can we empower ourselves to feel comfortable pushing the limits where you feel safe, but society might not feel the same way?
At least not yet. I think, we're going into the topic of, it's a gateway drug. Cannabis being a gateway drug is going to lead us into, and at least in this case, it's just going to lead us into psychedelics. I personally have never thought about doing painkillers or any of that weird stuff after trying marijuana for the first time. But I'm curious, like here in Peru, for example, I could go to the store and I could buy microdoses for psilocybin, for wachuma, for ayahuasca. I've done all of these things and actually had really great results with creativity, just actually productivity and empathy. I'm curious if you've tried any of those and what your experiences are with them.
Yeah. So I've been to Peru and done wachuma and ayahuasca in a very beautiful, wonderful private experience with a shaman couple, and that was my husband and I. I've also done ayahuasca in the States, and given our given our topic at hand, which is the motherhood experience with that psychedelic lens, I had just given birth to my son and decided to join a journey, and I was a month after childbirth, and there was someone in the room that was like wailing, like very deeply, and it was very disruptive for a lot of people. But for me, I was hearing it and I was envisioning myself I'd just gone through a very natural childbirth, and somewhat traumatizing experience in terms of having to be rushed to the emergency room afterwards to deliver my placenta. It was very painful. And so I know the sounds of giving birth. And these wails were very, like her wailing, were very distinct. And the journey I was on was that I was giving birth to my new self. Myself as a mom. I was on this new journey. And so I think that was this very cataclysmic moment in my motherhood journey, which was, I was only a month into it, but I already had this rebirth of, this is who I am. This is now my identity. And I think that a lot of mothers go through that, but instead of it being a beautiful, healing rebirth, they feel it as isolation and the death of themselves. And that difference of perspective is a very nuanced version of what psychedelics can do for your entire being and mindset. The difference of feeling that I birthed myself and I am this new radiant being as a mother, and that is me shining, and it is so beautiful, versus the darkness of that a lot of moms experience when they've just lost themselves. They no longer have a me identity. They, like, when you go into motherhood, a lot of moms feel like they've lost their sense of self and their being. And so it's all a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah. So Sorry for talking over you. Just to clarify, this was Wachuma, or was this ayahuasca in this experience?
This is ayahuasca.
And so what about Wachuma? What impact did that leave on you? What experiences do you remember from that?
That was just a real deep connection to nature and the we are oneness, and it's interesting how our purges in these processes, how they live on in our memory. And so my Wachuma experience is we went to this rock that had something inside of it, and we're hearing the story from the shaman about what the significance of this is to their people, to their community. And there's these other tourists that walk in, and they're kind of like chatting, and I had this, that's when it hit me, the purge, the get me out of this claustrophobic cave. I need to be out in nature breathing. And I think there's like this symbolism of, the onlooker that doesn't really understand the connection. And when you do feel that connection to the earth, how those are like, oil and water. And that's when I had to run out of the cave, and I'm puking on the side of the cave while the tourists are walking out. And I was like, this is my journey.
Yeah,
surrender.
Yeah. What were other topic? One of my buddies here, he's been in Peru for 20 or so years. I don't even know, but he's a dad and whatever. He's actually from Texas. And we were doing a ceremony on Wachuma, was it 2 years ago? And he made this really funny point when we were going in and we were drinking and saying, the difference between psychedelics or like Wachuma and alcohol? So alcohol, you pay for it all in the back end, but psychedelics, you pay for it all in the front end. I thought that was really, really good point. Another topic I wanted to kind of jump into here while we're on this topic, specifically the dark sides of these plant medicines. And so I don't have a really good story on my own. I usually have good experiences, but I remember this another one of my friends who lives here, who's done a lot of Wachuma. He was out over by Sacsayhuaman. We were talking about that. Really cool site, by the way, for anybody listening. Check it out, Peru, Cusco, this stuff. But he was out over there, in the woods a little bit. And he said that he had this moment where he saw a Spanish conquistador running really fast, trying to catch up to these Incas. And then out of nowhere, he saw just tons of Inca heads just splattered across the trees. And he just, I don't know, he had a moment where he really felt the darkness of the history in Peru and really what was conquered and what was killed. I'm curious if you have a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that I touch on psychedelics, I think it's that reminder of our connectedness, that we are one. And what I think that brings us is a greater sense of compassion in the world, because we've seen that connectedness, how we affect each other. And I haven't had a super dark psychedelic experience. I think we've all had the I got too high experience, which even that for some people can be very terrifying. And it's the questioning when it's going to end. When am I going to get back out of this, whatever is happening, and get back to my numbness? And so there's something in there for us each time. There's
100%.
There's something, some lesson in it. And, we can take away whatever we want, but the most noteworthy is what was this showing you? And, I mean, there was one time at MJ Biz that I thought my husband and I had a babysitter. It was our first time like having a night out on a town where we were out of town, and we had gotten off the MJ Biz floor and went to an after party at 6 p.m. We were pretty tired. We were told that these coffee shots were unmedicated. They actually were small coffee shots that were like 100 milligrams each. And so they were unmedicated. So we're like, let's try all the flavors. So, for coffee shots later, we're in the car ride back to the hotel just to get changed to go out at night. And we are toast. There's no going out. There is no getting dressed. My anxiety is through the roof. I can't even think about anything other than I am going to die from getting this high. And this will never end.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And I mean, at a cannabis conference, out of all places, and with the expectation that I was taking something that was going to lift us up, and it turned out to knock us out. And so one of the things that I hear from moms so often, and so I think this is a interesting segue, speaking of caffeine, speaking of getting too high, is that moms are like, I don't want to get high because when I get high, I want to go to sleep. And I feel you. Me too. That is our body saying, you need to sleep. This is not for you to have fun. This is for you to sleep. This is your lesson. It doesn't matter if it's a 5 milligram lesson or a 400 milligram lesson. You need to lay down and rest.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Relaxing and sleeping and getting a good night's rest, right?
There's not. But if you're someone who says, oh, cannabis doesn't, when I smoke weed, I don't just get giggly and laugh. I want to lay down. You need to lay down.
Absolutely.
And cannabis won't make you laugh until you lay down, until you rest. And then when you reach that point, you can have another cannabis experience and laugh. But right now, your journey is you need rest.
One more question. I'm kind of running in a circle here. Go back to psychedelics if you don't mind. But I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed too, that a lot of higher level, CEOs, Silicon Valley people are really drawn to psychedelics. And at the same time, a lot of people don't really judge them. It's like, oh wow, Steve Jobs is the ultimate example. He did LSD and he was a big LSD advocate. And he still ended up being a really high performer. Never went to prison or any of that sort of stuff. However, when the topic of moms coming into play, I'm curious if you've noticed that there's some sort of double standard that moms tend to get judged a little bit more. And how do you think we could break this stigma? If so,
yeah. So I've sort of what you're saying in terms of CEOs don't get judged for doing psychedelics versus moms get judged for getting just the slightest bit high from a gummy.
It's an open-ended question, so I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah. So that double standard is absolutely there. And I had recently posted about that specifically on LinkedIn, but what I have said for years that I continue to repeat this quote is that when we normalize cannabis for moms, that is when it will be normalized for all society. So that goes for psychedelics too, but psychedelics does not have as strong of a stigma as cannabis does. So cannabis is, even though psychedelics are farther away on the path of legalization, their acceptance rate has happened at such a exponentially faster rate. The biggest, I'll talk to people who are not moms and they're like, you can get cannabis everywhere. This is normal now. It is more normal than it was 10 years ago, but it's still highly stigmatized for moms. So until it is normal for moms, it will not ever be normalized for all of society. And that is because moms are held to a higher standard. The expectations of how a mom needs to show up in this world is so much higher and so rooted in the patriarchy that we don't even see it happening. The expectations of just the school picking up the phone, they automatically call mom if your kid's sick. No one's picking up the phone and calling dad first. It's just not what they do. Because that's just the way, like, the mental load of motherhood is a thing. And it is not being talked about, and it is drowning mothers. They are struggling, and we are like, this is normal. But it's not normal. And until we normalize how we allow moms to improve their mental well-being, we won't ever see this plant just be normalized for everyone. And it is very normal. And so I have another post I've done recently that was like, everyone, don't get high from a gummy, you're a mom. But then also everyone's like,
yeah, I think I saw that. I think I like that. I'm not sure.
Glass of wine. Good luck. Here's Xanax, glass of wine, and crippling anxiety. Good luck. And it's like, no one blinks an eye.
It's super funny. I think you made a really good point. It's not as easy being a woman as it is being a man. And I could say that being a man pretty confidently. If we're talking about finances, if we're talking about opportunities, if we're talking about bodily cycles, it's a lot harder to be a woman. And so people like you are kind of making it a lot easier for women to be standing up, be confident and, on 2 feet confidently, and really be active and high performers in society, and at the same time not giving a fuck, and being honest and straightforward. And I love that about you, and I wanted to shout you out on that.
Thank you. I mean, like, my goal is to inspire moms to confidently consume plant medicine, whatever that might look like, in whatever capacity that is. If I can help to inspire them to have confidence around what they're doing, and also have confidence in just living a bold, courageous life that makes you happy. Like, not living your life to meet other people's standards. And the Instagram motherhood aesthetic is not something anyone needs to try to live up to. But that's what we are shown constantly. And it is an ongoing battle.
Yeah, hell yeah. So kind of a full circle here. We're wrapping up here now, but I'm curious, looking forward to the future. What should we be looking out for when people are looking at the High Society Mama, for fumbling my words, and Society's plant? What should we be looking forward in the next 6 months, maybe a year? What are you excited about?
I am really excited about how I am introducing moms to the plant. I'm working on really building out the system of how can I handhold at scale? How can I make this plant accessible and not scary for people starting out? I want more moms knowing they can turn to a natural plant and feeling safe and confident because of what I'm doing to help her get there. Like, that's the impact that I'm working on. I'm going to make.
I love it. Once again, this is Bianca Snyder. She's the co-founder, High Society Mom and Society's Plant. Definitely make sure to leave all of her contact information, the links and all that sort of stuff in the video description. If you're on the podcast, just check out the YouTube video. And, you can find the links there. A few more fun questions for you, Bianca, and if you're not comfortable answering, completely cool. But first things first, I'm curious about your first time trying cannabis.
Definitely was stealing a joint from my mom's ski jacket. I grew up in Park City, Utah, so my mom always had her joints. She was part of like Elvis's Memphis crew, and then a bunch of them from Memphis moved to Park City. We eventually made it there, so they all rolled joints. Growing up, I watched my parents roll joints and just thought they were special cigarettes. But then once I got to an age that I wanted to try smoking that, 7th, 8th grade, I definitely stole a joint from her ski get up, ski bunny get up. And I had no idea how to inhale. So I don't really think I got high. There was a couple of instances through high school that we probably stole joints from my mom. And I don't think I ever got high because I never had tried cigarettes. I did not know how to inhale. And I think it was well into my 20-year relationship with my husband before he actually taught me how to inhale without just coughing out all the smoke. But I went to school at Boulder CU.
Oh, I'm a CSU guy. We hate each other now.
But 420 on Fair and Field was absolutely a thing. And my first boyfriend from my college age was a big stoner and had the bongs by I am drawing a blank, super classic expensive bong maker that everyone knew.
A nice bong.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And so, he loads up the bong. I take one hit, go to Fair and Field. It's surrounded by dorm rooms. I'm with my girlfriend and we are cracking up because we can't find the exit of the field. There's just a cloud of smoke. Every side looks the same. We don't know which way up or down is. Couldn't tell you the direction of my house. And at least it was at that point in time, I apparently have gotten enough sleep that it did not make me tired. And we were just laughing our asses off. But up, down, sideways, we did not know which way was which. We had a good time. But I was like, and don't really need to do that on a daily basis at all.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Great story. These days, a little bit older now these days than you were when you were in college. What's your favorite cannabis product these days? What's your favorite way to consume?
I am pretty set on my happy place being with gummies. I've created gummies that I really like. I have my favorite fun gummy. At first, my first gummy that I had created was a 1-to-1, 12 milligrams of THC, 12 milligrams of CBD. I generally took half, and that was my happy place. Then when I got into, I'm like, oh, I can make gummies with more cannabinoids. So my favorite now for my fun gummy is our high energy microdose gummy. It has 5 milligrams of THC, 5 milligrams of THCV, which is what's in my fucking miracle gummy, and 20 milligrams of CBG. And I just love the higher CBG with it because it just takes all of that anxiety edge off. I don't like straight THC. It doesn't do it for me. My anxiety just starts to bubble up and I'm like, this isn't fun. I want to not have anxiety, not build on it. And even if the anxiety is just the paranoia of is someone looking at me funny? Am I too high? Am I talking too much? Am I? I don't need that. Don't sign me up for that self-criticism. That sounds terrible. And so, I love being at a cannabis conference because there's this need to hang out and smoke weed. And I'm like, oh, you can pass me the joint. I'll take one hit. But then once it gets to hits 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, my anxiety is hitting. I am not happy. I just don't pressure me to smoke. I just want to take my gummy and be happy. But can I get a scarlet letter that says I am already high? I don't need to smoke.
Well, maybe you could.
I'm the right amount of high. I don't need your pressure. But it's really hard to do that because everyone's like, oh, you're not gonna smoke.
Well, it's a cannabis conference. Don't you like weed?
Right, adult peer pressure. So it's just a weird position to be in because then it's you feel like you don't fit in, and no one wants to not fit in.
Yeah, love it. Well, one more question for you, Bianca. I definitely respect your time. We're going over an hour here, and so we can wrap this up. But I'm curious to kind of come full circle here again. Knowing what you know, looking into your crystal ball, seeing what you see over at Society's Plant, High Society Mama. What's the future of the cannabis industry for the next 4 or 5 years?
Ooh, the next 4 or 5 years, I would say, is shit show train wreck. We are like just getting smacked regulation after regulation. We're trying to find loopholes after loopholes to make things work, and it's round pegs and square holes. It's not working. One of the biggest messages that I'm advocating for the industry right now is self-regulation. I think that we really need to take what we know from other regulated industries, which is alcohol and pharmaceuticals, and how can we take the learnings of what they've gone through and apply it to our industry. The cannabis industry is very risk averse or risk tolerant. Everyone's taken risks to get where we are. So they're like, oh, what's another risk? Well, one of the wrong risks puts the whole industry on the line, and that's when they add more regulations. When something bad happens, now everyone pays the price, not just you. And so how can we come together to come up with what are safe guidelines for marketing, for sales, for selling hemp beverages in bars where people are crossfading and mixing alcohol and cannabis? What are the right amounts so that people have a good experience and the industry keeps growing? But there's so much ego caught up in the way that things used to be. And it used to be everyone wants to smoke weed and get really high. Now we have to enter the new age of let's use this plant for wellness. And how long does it take to bridge that gap? I would say a solid at least 4 years before either we get the amount of regulation that is going to be smacked down on us by state, all different, or whether it is us coming together and be like, hey, we're going to take this down a notch because we want to provide safe space for people.
Love it, Bianca. Thanks again for coming on, just sharing a small piece of your knowledge. I learned a lot in this conversation. Definitely wish you the best. You got some kick-ass brands going on. Definitely wish you the best with your growth and your scaling and all of that. And once again, make sure to leave your information in the description. But thanks for coming on. Wish you the best, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Sam here. Thanks again for listening to the GDM Podcast. So we do websites and SEO for cannabis brands and operators, and we do things a little bit differently here at GDM, where we can promise results within weeks rather than months. And so if you're looking to sell more ounces, bongs, other premium products, start selling some more weed, get in touch with us at Green Dispensary Marketing to learn more. Thanks again for listening, and hope you have a great day.